Hello everybody, this is Renier, and today I bring a very interesting game played just yesterday. A game between Cuban Grandmaster Renier Dominguez and World Junior Champion the Grandmaster Andreikin from Russia. Okay, let me flip the board. It's a SicilianKhan variation and it's very relevant to theory and to understanding of the Maroczy positions. Okay, let's get to the game immediately. After e4, c5, Renier Dominguez is playing with white pieces. In the tournament he has been played the English defense, but for this game he came back to his main weapon, that is e4. He's one of the best prepared grandmasters in the elite group. And here he plays the variation with c4, which he has been using for some years now. Before this he used to play bishop d3, knight f6, knight c3, and then bishop b4. Another popular variation is queen c7. For what we're going to see now, it's worth knowing queen c7 after all, because queen c7 is the move that black uses if he wants to win. Here white has many ways to get a safe position, for example even with bishop d3, queen c2, queen f3, which is a move that was made popular by Dominguez himself. But now also knight c2 is possible in this position. Dominguez chose a new way, which is very interesting. It is bishop d2. White gets unpinned by developing, and he's planning to just play a3 next, or bishop e2, or even f3. Nothing. So black must do something. Taking on c3 right now is not good, because after knight takes on e4, queen g4 of course attacks the knight on e4 and the pawn on g7. So that's not good. So looking back, black went queen c7, which makes sense. Developing. Also, there is a threat here that of course white is threatening to play e5 perhaps. So queen c7, a3, and again black should not take on c3, because after knight takes on e4, queen g4, and we have the same story. On knight takes on c3, white takes on g7. If black plays queen e5 right now, then knight f3 is very strong. So there isn't much of a choice here. Bishop e7 back, and white plays bishop e3, and we are at a normal position. That could happen if we play, instead of bishop b4 on move 6, we play a move like queen c7 followed by b6. For example, let me show you. After knight c3, if we play queen c7, normally white would continue with a3, preventing bishop b4 now, which, okay, this is some sort of inconsequence move, because white is not worried a move before, but now he avoids it. That's how theory is. I mean, on another move black plays bishop b4, and now after b6, bishop e3, bishop b7, and f3, we arrive into the main line that we're going to see in the game. Exactly same position. So let's see how it continues. After knight c3, bishop b4, bishop d2, queen c7, h3, bishop e7, bishop e3, and now d6. The normal idea. Now the moves that follow, they are all very logical. For example, bishop e2, castle, and now b6, queen d2, bishop b7, f3, and knight b d7. So far so good. Now Dominguez plays a move that he has been playing lately and it's not very common, and that move is rook fc1. It is quite dangerous, because if you don't know what to do with black, you might end up worse very quickly. The options, of course, are rook c1, normal. Then after rook c8 we have a very famous game between Topalov and Castellanos from the World Cup played in Tripoli in 2004. That World Cup was won by Castellanos, and he used the Khan with black several occasions. Against Topalov he played like this: queen b8, bishop f1, rook e8. Topalov didn't do much. After king h1, bishop d8, bishop g1. White setup seems harmless so far. And then this idea, I think this is the first serious game in, well, it's not the first serious game, but it was not so popular before this game, I think, at least for me, because here black really started some active play. You can see that he doesn't play bishop c7. The bishop on d8 is great because it can go to c7, but also keeps an eye on the diagonal d8 h4. It doesn't allow moves like queen g5. So with the bishop on d8, black is free to advance the pawn to h4 and an h3. Queen f2. Here he could play h4, for example. There is no need for knight e5. Knight e5, b3. Black wanted to force this move. Knight g6. Before h4, knight b3, and then h3 with some good counterplay. After g3, knight e5, black is putting some pressure on c4 and also on f3. The ideas of d6, d5 opening the diagonal a8, h1 are in the air. So Topalov played rook d4, and after knight c6 they repeated moves, and the game was a draw right now. Of course, if anyone is not happy with his position, that is white. That is looking a little bit overextended and soft on f3 and c4 especially. Okay, so that's rook c1. Of course, play could be improved, and more aggressive option is before rook c8, rook c1, rook fe8, or queen b8 like we saw in the previous game. Then knight a4. Yes, this sounds more aggressive, and this was played by Dominguez himself in 2007 against another Cuban grandmaster, famous as well, Walter Arencibia. And then after queen b8, king h1, Arencibia started his counterplay with h5 immediately. This is a typical idea and is recommended in many books. You can see in this hedgehog structures there was a plan invented by Fischer, who he chose to play king h1. It was in reverse colors. Fischer was playing white. He chose to play king g1, rook g1, and g4, and for some time that plan was considered useful. For example, in this position, black could play king h8, idea of rook g8, g5, and g4, but lately that's not recommended at all. It seems like it's the source of black's problems. So they recommend this idea: h5, h4, and h3. The pawn goes suicidal all the way to h3, and the idea is to weaken the h1 a8 square, so a8 diagonal, so you can play d6, d5 and get some counterplay against the white king. After rook fd1, h4, bishop f1, h3. You can see how simple is black's plan: h5, h4, h3, and then after g3, knight e5, bishop d8 perhaps was possible, but knight e5 looks very active as well, because now the threat might be knight takes on e4 or knight takes on f3. That's one of the ideas. Also d6 d5. So Dominguez took on b6, attacking the rook on c8, and after knight takes on e4, white cannot recapture on e4 because after bishop takes on e4 he will take on b6. So he has to make a move with his queen, and now knight g5, putting more pressure on f3. That leaves white with no choice but to take the knight, and after bishop takes on g5 he's capturing the rook on c1, so black is not losing material at all. Knight takes on c8, bishop takes on c1, rook takes on c1, rook takes on c8, and bishop takes on h3. In the end, white seems like he has won a pawn, but the position of his king, like I said before, is a little bit weak, and also black has a concrete idea, that is queen a7, attacking the knight on d4, which defends f3. So also c4 is very soft, so it's impossible for white to retain the material advantage. He has to play c5, d takes, and after c takes d4, position seems about equal, and a draw was agreed here. But anyway, interesting complications there in the middle game, and that surely can be improved. I think black can improve there, because it looks all the time like he has something more from this position. Okay, but let's see what Dominguez plays now. He plays rook fc1, and you will see his idea very soon. Now after rook c8, which is a logical move, he plays a4, and this is the critical position. a4, and the idea is to play a5, and when you capture, because there is no other choice, capture on a5, he will play knight b3, followed by knight takes on a5, and then b4, with full control on the queen side. For example, let's see one of Dominguez's recent games in which black reacted in the normal way with queen b8. After a5, b takes on a5. Of course, white cannot play knight b3 now, because of bishop takes on e4 and queen takes b3. So rook takes on a5 is enough. Bishop d8, rook a1, bishop c7, and now king h1. But the absence of the pawn on b6 gives free hand for white on the queen side. He will play b4 and b5, and he's already here. He's has opened the queen side, and he has full domination there. Here the counterplay with h5 is just too slow. b5, a5. Well, there isn't much of a choice here, but after rook b1, white is ready to play knight c6 and blockade the diagonal. After all, what I'm saying here is that black is much worse, almost lost. If not reactions, if not possible counterplay, the position looks very, very bad. And yes, Dominguez won in 10 more moves. Not necessarily force, but it shows the gravity of the position for black. But let's look at this position, and here Andreikin played a move that impressed me while I was watching the game on the live broadcast. It shows, I don't know, perhaps a high optimism in the position, or let's say faith in the position, in the strength of the hedgehog position, and he goes a5, weakening forever the b5 square, but not allowing white to create, to break through on the queen side. He surrenders the b5 square. In return, he prevents a5, but also gets control of the squares b4 and also c5. After analyzing the move, I understood that is quite possible, and now I think that is a very good idea. But I think it's a very hard move to make over the board, at least for me. I have had this position before in many blitz games, and well, not in the slow games, but in many blitz games I had this position, and that move never occurred to me. never. So white play knight b5, which looks normal, looks like the move. Queen b8, and white's plan, what is now? Put pressure on d6 and also b6. That's the only weak points that he can attack. Now Dominguez plays bishop f4, which seems to be the first imprecision, because allows black to organize his pieces in a comfortable way. So he should have played rook d1 first, because rook d1 attacks d6 immediately, and then black is forced to play rook c6, which is not the end of the world, but it's a move that usually you don't want to make. The problem is for white that he cannot improve much more, and black's plan is to play rook fd8, knight e5 and return, or knight c5 and return with the rook from c6 to c8, and everything is back to normal. And I don't think that there is much that white can do to prevent it. For example, b3, rook d8, king h1, knight c5. Now b3 is under attack, queen c2, and then rook c8. Looks like black is totally fine in this position, which is a good news for the Khan players. Now they have a new idea against these dangerous lines. Okay, but still rook d1 was better. After bishop f4, this allows knight e5, b3, and rook fd8. You can see that black managed to play this way without much to worry about. King h1, and now black started the typical counterplay with h5. Impressive in my opinion, because it shows that black is playing for a win, is playing active, is playing with hopes of winning the game, of fighting for the game. A more solid continuation would have been knight fd7, because you can see that here you can settle for just defend and strengthen your position. I don't see a way for white to put enough pressure. It had to be by playing f4 in the end, which would weaken e4. That's perhaps the only idea that could cause black some problems if white attacks on the king side now. Because, for example, after knight fd7, rook d1, knight c5, queen c2, h6, I don't see many problems for black at all. One plan could be rook d7, rook cd8, knight c6, knight back to e5. It doesn't look like white can improve. Instead, black chose to play in a more dynamic way, and of course a very interesting way. h5, idea of h4 and h3. Still black is hoping to play d65 in the future. Bishop f1. There is no point in playing bishop g5. Like I said before, with the bishop on e7 or on d8, black still will play h4. Bishop takes on h4, knight takes on e4. And if you play h3 to fix the pawn on h4 and perhaps capture it later, black still plays d5, and after e takes d5, for example, e takes d5, c takes d5, knight takes d5, white is under pressure. The bishop on g5, the queen on d2, the rook on d8, everything looks very a little bit loose in my opinion. What to do? There is suddenly black has taken over the initiative. No comfortable square for the queen. So after, if he takes on f6, after bishop takes on f6, he takes d5, black can play knight g6. The pawn on d5 is pinned and it will be captured later. Knight f4 is coming. Also there are some ideas in the black squares, queen g3, bishop e5 for example. Not easy for white to call an advantage here at all. I mean, after he takes d5, c takes d5, and knight f4, black is at least equal. Knight f4 and knight h5 is another idea. So there isn't much for white to do. Bishop g5 is out of the question, of course. So Dominguez played bishop f1, a typical move. The bishop goes to f1, protecting the king side, also getting out of the way of the rest of the pieces, freeing the second rank. Black went h4, and now queen f2, attacking b6. Yeah, perhaps my idea is, my feel over this game is that Dominguez underestimated the black's chances, and he missed the threat, I think. Now black went rook c5. Very, very strong move, in my opinion. It's not so obvious, because you have the option of playing knight fd7, and after rook d1, knight c5, which looks totally fine. White has to defend b3, and now you play rook d7, idea of rook d8, bishop f6. Black is absolutely fine, but rook c5 is even stronger, because the rook stays there forever, and black wants to play h3 and eventually knight g6 and d5. That could be one plan. So Dominguez thought about bishop e3, attacking the rook, and here complications start. d5, finally. This is the typical move in black's setup. He wants to play for this move, he wants to open the game, and now everything is ready for it. It's brilliant because the way that he's leaving the rook on c5 on their attack, and if white takes on c5, the bishop on e7 will join the attack, and black will get the initiative. Now, for example, after c takes d5, e takes d5 is mostly the same. Bishop takes c5, bishop takes, and queen takes on h4. Apparently white is safe, but he's not. After d takes on e4, his position is very, very bad. He has problems on f3. Black is going to take on f3. The white king is not safe, and if he takes on e4, knight g4 is a lot of trouble. On h2, on f2, and if he takes with the knight, then bishop takes on e4 and knight g4 again. There is queen f4 coming up, so queen f4 and knight takes on e4, or knight f2. That's a strong threat. The only way would be to sacrifice, and after b takes on c5, of course, in this position, perhaps white can hold, but black is much better. He's down a pawn, but the square e5, the open d file, the active knight, it all compensates. Queen e5 or queen f4 is coming up, so I think black is much better. Okay, in the game, white took on d5, it takes d5, and now he took on d5. It's clear that white cannot get rid of his dark square control. He cannot take on c5, at least for now. Now black played a very nice move, that was h3, weakening the diagonal, like I have explained before, and that's a very important idea, because only after that diagonal is open, black will think about taking on e4. Alright, so here rook d1, was played by Dominguez. Let me show you if white takes on h3, knight takes on d5. If bishop takes on c5, bishop takes c5, queen d3, and now knight f6, opening the diagonal, attacking f3, and black is better because white cannot play bishop g2 because of knight h5, followed by knight takes on f3. Is winning for black. So knight takes on d5, and now rook c takes d5, and it's a dream position for black. White cannot take on b6 because of rook d2. The white king is is very open. The bishop on b7 is a monster right now. Also, white cannot play bishop g2 because of knight d3, so bad position for white. Okay, Dominguez played rook d1. The idea is to keep the pawn on d5 at all cost, even though that he cannot do it. So black took knight takes e5, bishop takes on c5, bishop takes, and now queen d3. This is the final mistake, I think, for white here. The only move was queen h4. Black's minor pieces in the center, they have such activity that it makes very difficult for white to defend. Also, there is this pawn on h3 that, believe it or not, is quite annoying. For example, the only way to survive here would be queen h4, because it puts the knight on d5 on their pin. Then after h takes on g2, bishop takes, knight g6, queen d3, and now, yeah, white is offering the trade of queens. Black can play knight d3, and after queen takes on b8, rook takes on b8. Even without the queens, white is not yet out of the woods. Knight f4 is a threat. Knight f4 is a threat, and the position is only an exchange, and black's is very active, so it's not clear yet for white. It still is better than the game to play this position. His rook on d1 is under attack, and knight f4 is a threat. I think black has an advantage, but perhaps not losing for white. Dominguez played queen d3, and now knight takes on c3, and he took on d8. Why? Because if he takes on c3, bishop d4, threatening to take on c3, and white cannot play rook c1 because of bishop takes on c3, forced to take on d8, queen takes d8, and after rook takes on c3, queen d1 wins the game. H takes on g2 and knight takes on f3 are coming up. So here in this position, the only move would be f4, and now after h takes g2, bishop takes, king takes, the only move because the queen must defend the knight on c3, queen a8 check, king f1, and now black wins in many ways, but most pretty way is knight d3. Because if queen d3, queen h1, and if rook d3, queen h1 still. There is no way to prevent this queen h1, and also the knight on c3 is hanging, so that's the problem. Okay, so Dominguez took the rook on d8, queen takes d8, and queen takes on e5. Of course, if knight takes on c3, again he has problems in the back rank and the knight on c3 with queen d4. This is absolutely beautiful game, I think. So queen takes on e5 is the only move, but now black had a very strong move, and he played knight to d1, threatening, and knight f2. Of course, white cannot take on h3 because of bishop takes on f3, and after bishop g2 then knight f2 check. So the only move, rook a2, rook takes d1, perhaps was the only way, but not good enough. Queen takes d1, the queen e2, queen takes b3. Simple. White has an attacking, black has an attacking position, pressure on f3, taking the pawn on a4. Absolutely hopeless, I think. So rook a2, defending f2, knight e3, attacking f1 and g2 at the same time. Knight c3, only move because if rook f2, queen d1 wins the game. The threat is h takes g2. So knight c3, preventing queen d1, but knight takes on f1, black wins material. The rook e2, knight e2. Now the rest is simple. Black just wants to capture on b3, save the knight. Queen g3, takes on g2, rook takes, and g6. Defending the only threat, and now in this position white resigns. The position is lost. He's losing f3, b3. He's down material and nothing to play for. Okay, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this game. I spent a lot of time looking for games for this lesson, and this was played just yesterday, and I thought it was very good game for the Khan players out there, and the whole concept in the hedgehog positions. So I hope you enjoyed, and see you in the next video. Any comments, leave it in the forum as usual. I've been busy lately, but I will try to answer all your questions. Thanks for watching.